The Boston bombings have reignited the fear of terrorism across the nation. You've also renewed the fear that America could even get into a surveillance society.
Well, the terror attack has politicians debating national security and immigration. But as John Jessup reports, the American people are just as worried about their privacy.
After cameras captured the chaotic scene at the Boston Marathon finish line, the city's police chief said he wants more cameras to help law enforcement keep watch on possible high-value target areas downtown. A collection of video feeds, both public and private, and even cell phone images, help police identify their suspects. Now, other cities, in an attempt to prevent possible attacks, may want to follow suit. But privacy advocates caution against a rush to set up more cameras in cities across the country.
Preventing crimes is not something that camera systems have shown to be particularly useful for.
Mark Rotenberg directs EPIC, a privacy research group in downtown Washington. His organization keeps a watchful eye on those who are monitoring D.C.'s vast network of cameras. While Rotenberg believes the technology can be useful, he says it's also limited.
You look at study after study, and the lesson that you take away is that cameras can be helpful after the fact, but they rarely prevent crimes, and they certainly didn't in Boston.
Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert has other concerns.
Technology is a fantastic instrument to fight crime, but the danger is that everyone gets monitored all the time.
He's worried the expansion of surveillance could lead to government overreach, with Big Brother capable of knowing what virtually everyone's been doing.
We're close to that now. They have the capability of going on and finding out what you've purchased or what websites you go to, what emails you send.
It's an even greater concern with the use of unmanned drones flying over U.S. airspace.
Drone surveillance raises issues that are similar to the camera surveillance in cities. This is another useful technology. It has public benefit, but this should not become a type of surveillance of all activity that people engage in. That would be going too far.
The advent of newer technologies will continue to spark concerns about privacy. And in a post-9/11 world, the trade-off between feeling secure and maintaining one's privacy will be debated for years to come. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
Thanks, John. Ladies and gentlemen, if you read that chilling book, 1984, George Orwell, it was a shocker when it was published. Now people kind of take it for granted. But think what would happen when you wake up in the morning, there's a camera, watches what you do, you walk out of your home, you have to log into some kind of a box that tells where you are, at what time you started your day, and then do you get on a bus, do you get in your car, what do you do? And what do you do during the day? When you get to your office, you punch another button, you log in. All the time, you're under surveillance. Every time you move. When is there freedom? Well, there is no freedom, and that was the whole premise of 1984. There came a time when, quote, Big Brother monitored everything. We're coming to that now. It's not a pleasant situation, but this is what the Bible talks about when it says you can't buy or sell without the mark of the beast. You have to be part of that world system, and a few, and very, very few, can escape, because right now they can go down into the bush in the darkest Africa and hunt you down. So you say, well, we're going to feel secure. Secure from whom? And I think the American people are more afraid of the overreach of big government than they are some occasional bomber. Even if the bomber kills a few people, they would still rather have their freedom than to have Big Brother in constant surveillance. Well, the FBI says that they have thwarted a new terror attack. Lee Webb has more from the CBN newsroom. Here's Lee.
And Pat, this time the suspect is said to be part of an American militia group. 24-year-old Buford Rogers was arrested at his Minnesota home. Authorities found pipe bombs, Molotov cocktails, and a Romanian-made assault rifle. Officials say he was planning attacks against local residents and possibly against government officials. The FBI says the alleged plot was discovered through intelligence gathered by local, state, and federal authorities. The Obama administration is accusing China's military of carrying out computer-based attacks against the U.S. The accusations come in the Pentagon's annual report to Congress. It says China has been spying on U.S. diplomatic, economic, and defense programs. The report also warns that the computer skills needed for this kind of spying are similar to the kind needed to conduct cyber warfare. This is the first time the U.S. has so directly accused the Chinese government and its military of using cyber attacks to steal U.S. government strategy. The deadly attack on the U.S. consulate in Benghazi is back in the spotlight on Capitol Hill. A high-level State Department official is now challenging the White House's account of what happened on 9/11 last year, and that's fueling Republican charges that the Obama administration is engaged in a cover-up. George Thomas reports.
3 men, all career State Department employees, will testify this week that the White House misled the country on what happened at the U.S. diplomatic mission in Benghazi, Libya. One of them is Gregory Hicks. He was the number 2 man in Libya. He will tell Congress that he knew immediately the attack wasn't in response to a protest. According to interview transcripts, Hicks says, "I thought it was a terrorist attack from the get-go. I think everybody in the mission thought it was a terrorist attack from the beginning." U.S. Ambassador to Libya Chris Stevens died in the attack along with 3 other Americans. Yet 5 days after the attack on September 11, 2012, UN Ambassador Susan Rice went on multiple Sunday shows, blaming the incident on an anti-Muslim video that appeared on the internet. She insisted the attack was spontaneous. Some Republicans say the administration's response was calculated, coming on the heels of a presidential election less than 2 months away.
Well, clearly there was a political decision to say something different than what was reasonable to say.
Hicks will also testify that a small team of U.S. Special Forces were ready to fly a rescue mission to Benghazi, but were ordered to stand down. This directly contradicts the White House, which said all available resources were explored to respond to the attacks. This past weekend, several Democrats said Rice's comments about the attack were wrong, and that references to Islamic extremists and Al-Qaeda were scrubbed from her so-called talking points. Some Republicans accused the Obama administration of trying to downplay the threat posed by terrorists.
There's sort of a tendency to underplay what is in fact, I think, a growing and pretty dangerous and to some extent a different kind of threat than what we were facing, you know, 3 or 4 years ago.
Hicks has also told investigators that Ambassador Rice's response may have hampered efforts to capture those responsible for the Benghazi attacks, saying, "I firmly believe that the reason it took us so long to get the FBI to Benghazi is because of those Sunday talk shows." Hicks and the 2 State Department employees will speak publicly for the first time Wednesday when they appear before Congress. George Thomas, CBN News.
Pat, until this point, basically this story has only been covered by more conservative, less viewed, if you will, news organizations. I found it interesting, though, that yesterday on the Washington Post webpage, this was the headline story.
Well, let's face it, what was the big thing about Watergate? It was the Nixon administration lying to Congress, lying about what was going on, trying to subvert the agencies of government. Well, the liberal media jumped on Richard Nixon and brought him down. He finally had to resign. But we've got a president now who deliberately lies. This is a lie. There's no question about it. They have an agenda. The agenda is we have won the war on terror, so there isn't a war on terror anymore. And Al-Qaeda is no longer an operative force. It is just a band of rogues occasionally out there. And so if anything happens, it has to be spontaneous because of a video. And so some low-level staffer in the Cairo embassy decided that she, I believe it was a she, was going to apologize for what the United States did. And we're sorry. And after that, some of these things began. But the whole thought that this was spontaneous demonstration in relation to a video was just made out of whole cloth, and they were just a series of lies. Hillary Clinton apparently was involved in lying. Susan Rice was set up as the fall guy. and she made those the round on the Sunday talk shows and said this misinformation over and over again. How long are the American people going to put up with this? Well, you say it, most people, they don't care. I mean, Benghazi, who cares? Well, I mean, it makes a great deal of difference if your president doesn't tell you the truth. Lee?
Pat, the U.S. Senate has voted to allow new taxes for internet sales. Right now, most internet shopping is tax-free, but this bill would allow each state to start taxing internet sales as they choose. Supporters say the new taxes will level the playing field for brick-and-mortar stores that have lost business to online retailers. But many smaller online companies say they may not be able to keep up with the tax requirements across the numerous states where they do business. The bill, though, faces an uphill battle in the House. Obamacare could cause thousands of very sick people to lose insurance coverage. The pre-existing condition insurance plan is supposed to help those considered uninsurable, but the program is in danger because the federal government has capped spending at $5 billion. That leaves the states with the rest of the bill. In a letter to the Health and Human Services Secretary, a leading state health official said enrollees also appear to be at risk of increases in both premiums and out-of-pocket costs that may make continued enrollment cost prohibitive. He also warns that many people will simply lose their insurance coverage, Pat.
You know, Lee, it breaks my heart. It should break the heart of every thinking American that we have destroyed, or in the process of destroying, the greatest health system in the entire world. This thing is a monstrosity. The people who voted for it never read it. They didn't know what was in it. Nancy Pelosi said, we've got to pass it so we can find out what's in it. And the hidden consequences are gigantic, just hidden consequences. And they're just starting to come to light, and they're going to come to light over and over again. People are going to be hurt. Poor families are going to be damaged. The American economy is going to be hurt. It was a disaster. And this was the centerpiece of the Obama administration. He's pleased that it's called Obamacare. Well, he shouldn't be. But what Mitt Romney suggests, and others have said, the whole thing needs to be scrubbed. The entire law needs to be canceled and then start all over again. There's certain features in it, like the portability of insurance and so forth, that need to be put back in. But it could be done on a very, very simple basis. Nothing like this gargantuan monstrosity that we're dealing with right now. Lee?
A Bible publishing company has scored a victory in its fight against the president's contraception mandate in Obamacare. A court had blocked the government from enforcing that mandate while Tyndall Publishers was arguing the case in court. Now the Obama administration has asked a federal court to drop its appeal of that order. That means Tyndall House will not have to provide controversial abortion-causing drugs while the case moves forward in court. Pat?
Good for Tyndall. They published the Living Bible, among other things. They're great people.
That is good news.
A miraculous story out of Ohio. 3 Cleveland women who went missing around 10 years ago have been found alive. The women were found in this house on a quiet Cleveland street after a neighbor heard one of them screaming for help. Amanda Berry disappeared in 2003, the day before her 17th birthday. Inside that house, police also found Gina DeJesus, missing since the age of 14, and Michelle Knight, who vanished in 2002 at the age of 21. Police say 3 Hispanic brothers in their 50s are in custody. The investigation continues. The United Nations says Syrian rebels have used chemical weapons in their fight against the Assad regime. A UN investigator says they found evidence the Free Syrian Army used the nerve agent sarin, but the United Nations say they cannot offer concrete proof about that. Rebel forces deny the claim, and the White House says it's highly likely the Assad regime was behind those chemical attacks instead. You can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.